Well, in a downturn, rising demand for welfare as people go on welfare since they lose their benefits, they lose their job benefits and so on, they lose their income. Rising demands from Social Security, same argument. And of course, nowadays, all of this argument gets exaggerated by the bailouts, which are costing trillions of dollars, that the federal government, as the federal government gets less, it's spending more than ever before. That is a recipe, as you'll see when we do this, for real trouble. In the same way that it would be for you. If you're taking in less and your outflow is exploding, it's going to be a problem. On the state level, same thing. There are rising, in economic downturns, there are rising demands on the police, on the fire department. Just fire, for those of you not familiar with the ways of American business. When your business is in trouble, there are two things you can do besides declare bankruptcy or close down or merge. You can have a fire. If you have a very nice insurance policy, it takes about 5 minutes with a pad and pencil for anyone, for example, I can do that for you if you like, to show you why a fire would be the better way to go. Of course, you couldn't start a fire because that's a crime. But if a fire started by itself and burnt your place down, okay, every fire department in America knows exactly what I'm talking about. They have a long history. All fire departments know this. All fire departments are now, in cities that are not idiotic, are beefing up their fire departments right now. They're putting more people in the fire departments on each fire team because they know that they're going to have not only more fire calls, but very dangerous, because these are big institutions, stores and factories. That's very dangerous for firemen and women to go in there. So fire police, because there's more trouble in the society, is going up. Schools need more people. Why? Simple psychological fact, dozens of studies to show it. When unemployment goes up, family tensions rise, and kids have more trouble in school because their mother's in trouble, or their father's in trouble, or the relationship is in trouble, or the marriage is in trouble, or the household is too crowded, or the household is too tense, and it shows up in the child's performance, the child's behavior problems, the child's psychological difficulties, the child's, you fill in the blank. Schools need more personnel, fire more personnel, police more personnel, medical benefits more personnel, and not to be unfair, prisons. Got to have a place to put the people who act up. This all costs more. So the state and local governments have to pay for these things, because that's how it's handled in America. These are state and local responsibilities by and large. And so the state and local governments have to spend more when they're earning less. Impossible. And in America we have a law. The federal government can borrow money to pay for the business of running the government. State and local are not allowed in America. State and local governments cannot borrow for regular expenditure. State and local governments can only borrow for what are called capital projects, or building a school or building a sewer system. They can't borrow for running the business. They can't borrow to pay police or teachers or anything like that. They can borrow to build a school, but not to run the school. That's the law in the United States. Other countries don't have that kind of rule, but we do. So that's a problem here. The result of this division, federal, state, and local, is you're already seeing it, tremendous struggle as each branch of government tries to get out of this impossible situation by lopping their problems off the other. Bloomberg will blame Patterson. Patterson will blame Bloomberg. Patterson and Bloomberg will have a news conference to blame Obama. Obama will have a news conference with Patterson to blame Bloomberg. Musical politicians, this is called. And you will see a lot of that because they're all in a terrible situation and they're all desperate and they're all hoping the other one bails them out of the difficulty. Why? Because their political careers will be over. What is Mr. Bloomberg going to do? If he doesn't get help from Obama or Patterson or both, he's going to have to do two things here in New York. He's already announcing them, so I'm not making this up. He's either going to have to raise taxes. Interesting move. Everyone's in trouble. Everyone's freaking out. Everyone's having difficulty. And now he's going to hit you with taxes? Bye-bye, Mr. Bloomberg. No more mayor. Or, if he doesn't do that, he has to cut back expenditures. What's he going to do? He's now threatened this. He said it. He's going to lay off 15,000 teachers. He's going to raise by $1 or something like that the subway fares. He's going to half a dozen other things, all terrible, and they're going to cause him all kinds of trouble and all kinds of grief. And he doesn't want to do any of these things because every single one of them is bad for him politically and for all his supporters. So what's he going to do? Right? He's now deciding which are the people it's least politically dangerous to screw. That's what he's doing. And if the mass of people are screwable, say, for example, through a rising subway fare, that's what you're going to get. If people mobilize against that, then he'll go screw somebody else. It's sort of the squeaky wheel idea. You know, whoever makes the least trouble, you whack them. That tends to be poor people, disorganized people, ghetto neighborhoods, ghetto school. You know, you should know the story. It's very old in our culture. When the government cuts back, when the government does all these kinds of things, lay off people, cut back services, we then begin to see the feedback in a vicious cycle. For example, you raise the subway fare. What are you going to do? People are going to use the subway less. Even if they don't use it less, they're going to have less money to spend on everything else because they're paying money for the MTA. And by the way, what happens to the money you pay to the MTA? The MTA owes more money than Methuselah, so most of that goes to very rich people who lend money to the MTA. So you're taking money from the hands of many poor people who would spend it and giving it to the people who are wealthy and lend to the MTA who will not spend it because they're wealthy. They take their money and invest it, which means buying what? MTA bonds. That's right. It's a circle. They become wealthier that way. But it's very bad for the economy. Very bad. Second, when the federal government has to spend all this money as less taxes come in, we're going to do this more later, but I want you ready to see these relationships. How does the federal government get the money to pay for these bailouts? The one you're reading in the newspaper, $800 billion, give or take? Is money coming in less? And they're talking about one of the biggest spending programs in the history of the country. The way that's going to be handled is by borrowing. There is no other way. Taxes are going down. They have to spend a fortune. They have to borrow it. So the federal government goes around borrowing. But here's what the federal government says. If you lend to us, we guarantee payment. We guarantee it. Everybody who has money to lend in the world says, whoa, I'm not going to lend to the Acme fireplace factory. I got no guarantee. That's a nice man, but he goes out of business. He's not paying me. I'm not even going to lend to GE. They're not going to pay me if they're in trouble. But if the United States government gives me the guarantee, that's the best investment I can make. So this is called in economics crowding out. The federal government becomes the borrower of the world. Everybody else is screwed out of credit. Yeah, but that's not good because the whole rest of the economy lives on credit. So no one is going to lend to the little business or the medium business or even the big business these days. They're all going to lend to the government. But that's a disaster. That makes the private economy worse, so that what the government is doing will prove to be insufficient, since the very thing the government is doing is making the problem worse that it's trying to solve.